I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Palestinian President agrees to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister. Hamas reiterates its commitment to destroying Israel, and we'll reveal which Israeli power woman has been crowned as the next Miss Israel. Stay tuned for the latest news in the Holy Land. Lots of Israelis have renewed hope today after Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas agreed to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, all in efforts to kickstart the deadlocked peace process. Abbas says the proposed summit will take place under the auspices of U.S. President Donald Trump. The American leader reportedly intends to actually issue invitations to the talks when he visits Israel and the Palestinian territories on May 22nd and 23rd. Abbas and Netanyahu might even get together during the presidential visit. Washington's last attempt to broker peace broke down in 2014, but that 9-month initiative never included a face-to-face meeting between Netanyahu and Abbas. In fact, they haven't sat down at the negotiating table for 7 years. Since that time, the PA boss has been insisting that he will never resume negotiations unless Israel freezes all settlement building and agrees to release Palestinian prisoners. This has contributed to a total impasse because Netanyahu has said he won't meet if there are any preconditions. Now, Abbas is implying that he may drop those demands, which indicates that a real breakthrough might be on the horizon. Just in case there was any doubt, Hamas is speaking out to make it very clear that the terror group still seeks Israel's destruction. One of Hamas's most senior officials says a political policy document released in Qatar last week in no way contradicts its founding 1988 covenant. Even though the Islamist organization maintains that it technically agrees to the creation of a transitional Palestinian state within the 1967 lines, it continues to advocate the elimination of the Jewish state.
فلن نتنازل عن شبر واحد، عن فتر واحد، عن مليمتر واحد من فلسطين لأنها جزء من ديننا ومن عقيدتنا ثابت لا يتغير. إذا أيها الإخوة الأحباب، ليس هناك أي تناقض بين الثابت بين ما قلناه في وثيقتنا وبين والعقد الذي بيننا وبين الله تبارك وتعالى.
The statements come after many Mideast analysts jumped to the conclusion that the new Hamas document might be softening the group's language towards Israel. But the policy still rejects Israel's right to exist and calls for an armed struggle to liberate all of historical Palestine.
ثبتنا الثوابت التي لا تتغير. ثبتناها. إنه الأرض لا نعترف بإسرائيل. إيش معنى لا نعترف بإسرائيل؟ الدولة كما قلت أرض وشعب وسلطة كما تعرفون. طيب لا نعترف بأن هذه الأرض المحتلة عام 48 ملك لإسرائيل، لا نعترف. ودين، هذا دين لا يتغير ولا يتبدل. 2، لا نعترف بأن هذا الشعب الذي جاء هنا هو شعب له حق.
Zahar is also denying that Hamas is in any way trying to align itself with Mahmoud Abbas and his Fatah party. The Palestinian president says he recognizes Israel and is seeking a final peace agreement based on the frontier that existed before the Six-Day War. Now that the Palestinian Authority is taking a harder line against its rival Hamas, fears of a humanitarian crisis in Gaza are exploding. The territory's health ministry is now warning that Ramallah's latest decision to stop delivering medicine and even baby formula to the Strip could be catastrophic. The decision was just handed down 2 days ago, but Gaza officials say there's already a serious shortage of urgently needed supplies. It's now been 3 months since the last shipment from the West Bank, and no one knows how long until the next one will arrive. The head of the ministry's pharmaceutical department says that area hospitals lack 17 different kinds of cancer-fighting drugs that patients need to take daily. Many Gazans are now reportedly seeking alternative medical care in Israel. One Ramallah spokesman is responding to the latest charges by saying that PA President Mahmoud Abbas has no knowledge of any decisions to cut off medicine or baby formula. But the West Bank government has recently imposed a number of heavy restrictions aimed at pressuring Hamas to relinquish its governance of the Strip to Abbas. They include the refusal to foot the bill for electricity that Israel supplies to Gaza, as well as slashing the salaries of PA employees in the enclave by 30%. But at the same time, Abbas has canceled the need for Gaza's population to pay fees for a range of public services for things like health and education. This step was apparently done with the intention of humiliating Hamas, based on accusations that the terrorist rulers only use the funds for their own personal gain. Some of the greatest security threats to Israel are offshoots of the Syrian civil war. That's according to the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is in Israel meeting with top Israeli officials. Many of the greatest security threats to the Jewish state are offshoots of the Syrian civil war. U.S. General Joseph Dunford agrees with Israel's assessment that since the Lebanon-based Hezbollah group is now operating in Syria, an Israeli defensive campaign would be necessitated if the terrorists were to attack the Jewish state. He's also confirming the scope of Hezbollah's vast arsenal and says its fighting force is equipped with advanced missiles, artillery, and a fleet of armored military vehicles. As far as the Islamic State goes, the top American defense chief says Israeli officials are pleased with efforts to defeat the radical extremists, but are disturbed over Iranian attempts to fill the potential vacuum. Dunford believes that the risks Tehran pose to the region should be prioritized, particularly over its involvement in Syria, as well as its support for Hezbollah. This has been Dunford's third visit to Israel, which he describes as America's close partner. Joining me today in the studio to discuss Hamas's change of leadership and the emerging humanitarian crisis in Gaza is Dr. Mordechai Kedel, who served for 25 years in the IDF military intelligence and is an expert in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So let's begin. Last week, Hamas elected Ismail Haniyeh as their new leader. Now, how will this change Hamas's policies, if at all, especially towards Israel?
Not much, if at all. First of all, Khalid Mash'al, the so far leader, remains very close to the leadership. So as long as he is there, real changes cannot be introduced by anyone. Secondly, Haniyeh and Mash'al are more or less the two sides of the same coin of the terror and hatred against Israel. Of course, they have some differences because Haniyeh is from Gaza Strip and Mash'al is from the West Bank, but they worked very well together so far. The only change which we can already see is that the weight of the Gaza people in Hamas in general becomes bigger, while those who did not live in Gaza or didn't function in Gaza
Now, why is that the
becomes weaker.
case?
Because Gaza is a state. And don't forget that Ismail Haniyeh already in June, like less than a month from today, they celebrate the 10th anniversary of their state in Gaza, after they took over Gaza from the PLO. So Haniyeh definitely showed that he can deliver by running a state. And 3 wars against Israel, 3 rounds of violence, and he survived personally and with the organization and with the state which he has. Definitely big achievement.
Now, one issue that is, on many Israelis' minds is the remains of Hadar Goldin and Oron Shaul, two IDF soldiers who are still being held by Hamas. Do you think this will in any way affect the negotiations that will exist in terms of getting their bodies out of Gaza and back to Israel, and also the release of Avraham Mengistu and Hisham al-Sayed from Gaza, two mentally disabled Israelis that are in Gaza?
On the contrary, I think it will be harder now. Not because of Haniyeh and Mash'al, just because the new leader of Hamas in Gaza, which is a guy named Yahya Sinwar. Sinwar is a killer, and he was in jail forever, lifetime. But he was released in the Shalit swap. And he became one of the, since he came back to Gaza, he became one of the real, I would say, militant leaders of Hamas. And this actually what gave him the elevation to become the next leader of Hamas. And he will replace Haniyeh, who will go to the political bureau of Hamas. And when Sinwar is there, definitely he is much more radical, much more precise than Haniyeh. And I don't see any softening in the line of Hamas, especially when this document which they published last week doesn't really change the music.
Now, speaking of that policy paper, some are saying that this represents a significant change in Hamas's ideology, but Israel says, no, that's not the case. And today, Hamas did come out and say that we still are advocating for the destruction of the Jewish state. So is there any impact that this charter is going to have at all?
The main question was what will be the status of this, before the content. Whether it will replace the charter, which calls to destroy Israel totally, or not. And the title of this new document is something different. It's not a charter. It is a policy paper. Means something much lower, and they actually update the policies which they make vis-a-vis Israel. They don't recognize Israel. The only new thing in this document is that they are ready to establish a Palestinian state on the borders of which were between 1948 and 1967. Yet they don't recognize Israel. They demand Jerusalem, and they demand the return of millions of refugees into Israel as a preamble. Of course, they don't say it, but as a preamble to topple Israel altogether.
Now, I'd like to turn to the issue of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The PA has refused to pay for medical and fuel shipments to the Strip now. And, the question is, why are they refusing to do this all of a sudden? If the PA is the legitimate governing body of the Gaza Strip and its citizens, doesn't that mean they're responsible for the welfare of the people?
Well, first of all, the money which was funneled into the Palestinian Authority is reduced recently because many of the donors in the world do not like their money to go straight to the accounts in Switzerland, which those officials have. So in order to reduce the expenses, they decided not to sponsor any more things in Gaza. After all, Gaza is under Hamas for 10 years. Hamas actually is a challenge to the PLO, so why should the PLO or the PA pay for something which they don't benefit from in Gaza? So this is one thing, and this actually broadens the gap between the PLO and Gaza and Hamas, which again proves that to talk about one Palestinian people is a deception, is some kind of something which doesn't exist anymore. These are two different cultures.
All right, Dr. Mordechai Kader, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
As the clock ticks down to U.S. President Donald Trump's first ever visit to Israel, speculation is rising over what he might do or say when he arrives in less than 2 weeks. Many Israelis are hoping that he'll follow through on his campaign pledge to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which he's apparently still considering. According to White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the president still hasn't reached a decision on the matter. She's also refusing to provide any kind of a timeline as for when he might make up his mind. The local media has been going wild with contradictory reports. Some articles are claiming that Trump's ready to announce the relocation on May 23rd during celebrations for the 50th anniversary of Jerusalem's reunification. Others say they have inside knowledge that there's no way he's going to reverse longtime U.S. policy and will leave the diplomatic compound where it is in Tel Aviv. Well, as all the hype and anticipation builds, you're just going to have to stay tuned on ILTV to find out. The Israeli Knesset has just approved of changes to the Public Broadcasting Authority, ending a year-long battle that almost resulted in early elections. ILTV's Aaron Porce joins me in the studio to give us the update. Aaron, what is this latest vote all about?
Basically, it was the final vote to finally close the Israel Broadcasting Authority and replace it with a new network under more government supervision called Kan. But it has a lot of people still very divided, especially since the final vote and decision to close the IBA radio and television networks came just hours before IBA themselves were notified that they were shutting their doors and turning off the lights. And this is after 81 years of service. So
yes, I mean, this has definitely been a very emotional transition for a lot of Israelis, to say the least. So let's check out your report.
Just yesterday, the IBA's Channel 1 was taken off the air midway through its Mabat nightly news broadcast, with only 2 hours' notice before being told that they were closing. Under the new changes, the IBA will be reformatted into a new publicly funded institution known as Kan. However, the news desk will be a separate entity, giving the government increased editorial control over news content. Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon had long championed the changes, but believed that the government should exert minimal editorial control over the news station. However, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted that the government retain its hold over the news desk in alleged fears that it would be overtly critical of his government.
Because of the rich archaeological history in the Holy Land, it's a constant struggle to combat the looting of ancient treasures, which are often unearthed in illegal excavations. Fortunately, Israeli authorities have just succeeded in recovering a vast trove of stolen antiquities during a raid in the West Bank. A joint police and civil administration operation discovered the trove yesterday at a home in the Arab village of Beit Ula, just outside of Hebron. The cache included 2,000-year-old ancient Jewish ritual objects, oil lamps, and dozens of coins used long ago. Most are believed to date back to the Second Temple, Roman, Byzantine, and Hellenistic eras. The Palestinian homeowner was arrested and is being brought to court today to extend his detention on charges of antiquities trafficking. Investigators hope to find out if the suspect, who's in his 50s, is involved in a larger network of thieves and dealers. Just last month, another Palestinian man was arrested near Nablus on suspicion that he smuggled hundreds of relics. While experts say these artifacts are worth tens of thousands of dollars on the black market, no price can be placed on the loss of heritage for future generations. Frequent flyers, get ready, because Israel's El Al Airlines have just made their flights a lot more comfortable. ILTV's Aaron Porras is back with the scoop. Aaron, I can't imagine that it's that difficult to make a flight more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I can think of way more ways to make it worse.
Well, that's not what we're looking for, obviously.
Yes, that's true.
Luckily, I found something, a way to actually make traveling, 10 hours from here to New York, wherever it is.
Yep, no, it's like you say, a new design that was just released on El Al Flights, which won the gold medal at the Innovation Amenities category in the Travel Plus Innovation Competition held in Germany. Has just been released. It's available on all El Al Flights. I'll tell you about it in just a sec.
I guess I'm going to have to start traveling with El Al now.
The wearable blanket allows El Al passengers to stay cozy with their hands free during the long and typically uncomfortable flights. The blanket has openings for the hands and head, which helps it stay on when sitting or sleeping upright. The blanket was created by Israeli design firm Lily Design, founded by Idan Neuberg and Gal Bulka. The duo submitted the blanket design while participating in the Cockpit by El Al Accelerator program, designed to catalyze startups and new technological innovations in the aviation industry. Lily Designs has also created a line of airline pajamas and airline trays for El Al, among other items. Not to mention the customizable and fun popcorn bowl, She Popco. All these amazing products and more are available on Lily Designs' website, but the pajamas and blankets can already be found en route during your next El Al flight.
There's nothing worse than getting food poisoning or being a vendor that gets in trouble for selling tainted products. Well, one Jerusalem company just came up with a rapid-fire technique to eliminate the chance of consuming something that's going to make you sick, and they've received a major award for it. The United Nations International Award for the Excellence of its Innovative Ideas and Agribusiness Technology has just been awarded to the Arok Technology Transfer Firm. The Israeli company is being honored for its fast food test that can identify any trace of hazardous bacteria within just 45 minutes. Yarok's CEO explains the goal of the project is to help farmers in less developed countries expand their export opportunities by being able to meet high international standards to ensure food safety. The Israeli company is one of 5 other winners to be awarded the top prize amid fierce competition between 330 separate entries from 80 different countries. The winners of the contest were announced in Milan this morning at the opening of a conference sponsored by the UN's Organization for Industrial Development. It's all part of the campaign to recognize the world's best technological inventions aimed at enhancing socioeconomic security and food conditions in developing nations. Fish farmers around the world often go to great lengths to protect their aquatic livestock from diseases which have the potential to devastate underwater ecology and lead to major environmental problems. Well, one new Israeli startup has found a way to stop viral diseases from spreading throughout the global shellfish population. And joining us now in the studio is the CEO of Yakwa, Shai Ufaz. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So how does this work?
Well, as you said, the major problem of aquaculture these days is the diseases. And what we do in VAqua is developing a technology to treat the viral diseases in aquaculture. Our solution, the way we do it is by using a cell mechanism, which called RNAi, and we actually triggering the cell immune system of the shrimp in order to eliminate the virus.
It's funny that you're focusing on shellfish more specifically, right? Because we are in Israel, the kosher land of Jews, right? Is this also applicable to other fish as well?
Yes, it's really funny, but actually shrimp is a very big and commodity in aquaculture, and has more than 20% in value, 20% from the total value of aquaculture.
Wow.
And actually in shrimp there is no current solution for the viral disease that attacking them. And major industries all over the world suffer from it.
So who's using this technology that you've created so far?
So far we are under development. Nobody is still using it, but we've already shown that the technology we have a proof of concept that shows that it works. And now we are in the development process. Actually, what we do, we select a specific sequence of the virus and deliver it into the shrimp cells. The RNAi technology is very efficient in shrimp. When you inject it, it works fantastically. And we are developing a technology to deliver these vaccines through the shrimp feed.
Wow. Now, what made you choose to focus on this issue?
Well, we came from the industry, and we found out that the diseases are a major problem. And in shrimp specifically, there is no current solution. We came with the need, and we met Professor Avi Schroeder from the Technion, and he's an expert in drug delivery. To use his experience in developing drug delivery platforms for humans, to take his experience and his knowledge and to tailor it for a solution for the aquaculture.
So I'm sure all of those who are involved in the fish farming industry are going to see this and be very excited about it. Good luck. I hope everything works out.
Thank you very much.
All right, the beauty of Israeli women is practically legendary, and now the newly crowned Miss Israel is raising the nation's hopes of winning this year's world competition, although she inexplicably faced challenges when the Israeli public backed a male lawmaker. You have to hear this to believe it.
21-year-old Rotem Rabi has been modeling since completing her national military service as a medic in the Israeli Air Force. But watch out, guys, because she's about to join the investigative division of the police force. She was named the pageant winner in a live broadcast last night after being chosen by both the judging panel and online voters. Miss Israel's only taken the world title once back in 1998, but we're all pulling for Rotem to win when the competition's held in China this December. One really funny thing happened when the public was asked to post photos of their favorite beauty queen online. The vast majority put up pictures of Likud Knesset member Oren Chazan without a shirt. The lawmaker is pretty well known for somewhat audacious behavior, but he took the dubious acknowledgement with humor. He says he's excited to be the people's choice and is vowing to reduce world hunger and bring world peace. Seems like we've heard that before, right?
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. An Israeli design duo has just won a gold medal for their new airline blanket. So we decided to cover it up in today's word, smicha, meaning blanket. You may not think of smichot or blankets being very important here in Israel, where the weather is hot and humid most of the year. But a smicha can come in all shapes, colors, patterns, fabrics, and more, and there's a smicha for everything. You can take a smicha layam or a blanket to the beach, or you can protect yourself from mosquitoes using a smicha daka or thin blanket during those hot summer nights. And on those rare occasions that you actually do get cold in the Holy Land, you can whip out a smicha chashmalit or electric blanket. No matter what the situation, just remember that if you keep a smicha close by, you're sure to be covered in almost any situation, pun intended. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear to partly cloudy with a low of 63 or 17 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow is expected to be fairly windy with a significant rise in temperatures and a high of 79 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.61 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.